Good morning, guten Morgen. I hope you all recovered from last night. Michael?
Yeah, I think the attendance, the slow attendance in was from the 2 a.m. last night.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I think those seats over there were. So we're talking about the Internet of Things today, the world of connected objects. And it's like many new things, it has a spectrum of sentiment that on the one end is exuberance, and on the other end of the spectrum is skepticism and even mockery.
Yeah.
So I went to the Wall Street Journal, looked at our headlines, and tried to make sense of that. And I came across just two headlines that I'll share with you. One said, "The Internet of Things will change everything. Billions of connected devices can disrupt any business." Wall Street Journal last month, must be true.
It is the Journal, after all.
It is the Journal. So also in the Journal, then, at the start of this week, dumb smart gadgets. The bubble is set to burst.
Yeah.
It's the Wall Street Journal, so it must be true. So why don't you help us make sense of this? Is it a disruptor or a bubble, or are we looking at it even the wrong way?
Well, I think we'll bring context to it. So there are three major trends that are happening that are setting up what most people call Internet of Things. And I'll talk about why we think it's more the intelligence of things. And that is this idea of Moore's Law, that things are getting cheaper, yet they're getting more powerful. So you're seeing this explosion in computational power and processing power, along with a trend called miniaturization. So you're really seeing, and we'll show some examples, I think, later of what we mean by miniaturization. You're seeing costs come down, so you're seeing the ability to put computing into almost any device. So it can be pervasive. And along with that, you have this idea of cloud that happened at the same time that allows you now to store, serve, secure, and process data and pull business insights and consumer insights into almost any business that makes everything smarter. And so with that, there's always this natural tendency of people to move into a field like this where there's a low cost of capital to get in now, and let's make everything smart, and you wind up with novelty. You wind up with gimmickry and novelty that comes into certain products that some people say, well, really, does that need to be smart? And I think the bigger question to ask is, does this provide a service? Does it provide a solution? Is it customer centric? I mean, what is it providing? If it's just providing information, it's not intelligent. It's just lots of data points and lots of information. But if it provides useful information, things that will reduce the cost of health care, will provide the ability for you to manage your own health and wellness, give more mobility to the elderly because they can now be monitored more mobilely, reduced infrastructure costs, reduce fatalities in automobiles. All of a sudden you start to provide a service that people say, I may actually give you my data for that service, and I'll allow you to have that as a customer. But I think you do have these two spectrums, so I think the Wall Street Journal is absolutely right. Is it going to be in everything? Yeah, it probably is going to be in a lot of stuff.
So let's walk through a number of examples, and you can decide whether they're a disruptor or a dud. Smart light bulbs?
Okay, so well, okay. Smart light bulbs, there's spectrums. So as you know, energy is on everyone's mind, not only with the smart grid, but how do we manage our own energy? How do we become less reliant on the grid? So does a smart light bulb consume less? Does it know when to turn itself on, turn itself off? So it's, I forgot to turn the light switch off. It actually knows that you've exited and the lights go off. Those type of smart light bulbs are going to be very important as you think about energy consumption. And as you think about the population explosion that's going to happen and the amount of consumption rising, consumption's on the rise around the world, we have to become smarter in how we consume many, I think, of our natural resources and many of our utilities. And so in that end of the spectrum, a smart light bulb, I would say, is important. Now, there are smart light bulbs that, this can change 20 colors. That's interesting, and LED and smart technologies allow you to do that. I think some of those are going to be more novelty. You'll see some of those come and go, but I do think as you think about the smart consumption of electricity and any kind of electronics that plug in are going to have to become smarter that way. I think it's good and bad.
Good nuanced answer.
Yeah.
Smart thermostat. You've seen a lot of publicity around Nest and a lot of action around that. I assume it falls into the disruptor camp.
I think that's a disruptor. I mean, that's clearly a disruptor. It is the ability, again, for you to sort of manage your temperature, manage your environment, but at the same time consume less. And the more data that's gathered from your thermostat to make you smarter about how I'm consuming electricity will be important. And I think you're seeing that in the data points and the percent of people who've put in smart thermostats and the reduction of their energy consumption. And so I think that's clearly a disruptor. It's disrupted major industries. I mean, if you think about it, Nest came in and has disrupted a lot of the original manufacturers that were in that space. And they've done a nice job, and I think you'll continue to see that. And you'll continue to see that as it connects to your wireless grid in your home or connected home, connected world. I think you'll see more disruption in that space.
Good. I'll throw out a couple of more. I'll bunch them together.
Sure.
Smart fork, smart socks, smart diaper, and then smart cup with Wi-Fi.
So the fork, I'm not sure what that's telling you. Eat less, maybe. I'm not familiar with the fork, but that feels a little like novelty to me. I would say the smart diaper could be actually quite useful, I think, for family members.
How would it be smart?
Well, it would be smart in that, again, as you think about sensors and the cost of these sensors and the processing power, a sensor can go into almost anything, and it absolutely could go into a diaper that's throwaway. It could actually work with an app on your mobile device and tell you when the child has messed and alert you to that, and there you go. It can go to that extreme. Could that be a disruptor? It could actually be perceived by some consumers as a competitive advantage to having something like that versus someone who doesn't have it. So I'd say that's more interesting.
And I'll let you off the hook for the smart cup with Wi-Fi because that came from Dilbert.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So you have connected objects, but the ecosystem of connected objects is at least as important as the connected object itself.
Yeah.
Can you speak to the importance?
Sure. I think I'd like to say that it's more now product as a platform. Many people think you're in the consumer products business, or the B2B business in product, but you're really product as a platform at this point. There's an ecosystem around that platform, and that's how you have to think about it. And it's not just SaaS-based applications. It's SaaS with hardware, and it's a combination that actually makes something smart. And so I do think it's product as a platform. I think what it has done, though, it has fundamentally changed how we think about product development. Moving forward, I think any product company now has permanently embedded IT in its process through R&D and through product development. That has changed.
You have radically changed
yes.
how you help other companies.
Yeah,
with that,
that's
right?
correct. So as we saw these trends, these mega trends in technology and in consumption, and certainly as the population rises, the stresses on the ecosystems, the stresses on the infrastructure, and how could we make things simpler and easier, we knew we had to move more up the value chain. If you think about our company 30 years ago, we were probably just in contract manufacturing. So you give us a print and we build it. We've now moved into sketch to scale. So we've added all of the design engineering capabilities and have fundamentally looked at we've determined 7 core underlying technologies that cut across all sort of industries and make things smart and connected. So that whether that's an automobile, a tractor, an irrigation system, electronics guidance systems for airplanes, how do we make things smart and connected, and what are those core technologies? So we've developed a whole piece of the company now that's in innovation, and that's we co-innovate And many brands co-locate with us at our major innovation design centers around the world. We actually now can go sketch to scale. We've had people come in with sketches on napkins with an idea, major brands, and we take them all the way through to distribution. So.
And you literally have thousands of people working on this.
200,000 employees. Yeah.
There's a center with.
Yes. Yeah. We have one of the major hubs is a 1 million square foot, 15 building innovation center. We have over, I think, about 3,800 design engineers working in this space.
So clearly, you're trying to position yourself to come out as a winner in whatever this space will ultimately end up being. But if you look around, will there be very clear winners and losers outside yourself?
Yeah, I think what you're starting to find is that we're seeing the need for velocity and speed to market in manufacturing and products. And we're seeing through a lot of these very rapidly fast-changing, fast-paced technologies coming to market, that the development cycle in technology is condensing, it's becoming smaller. You're now in 9-month cycles. If you miss the 9 months going to market, you're now a generation late. And so the speed at which you can go from concept to commercialization is a competitive differentiator. And so for us, when you're working with multiple partners, you add you slow yourself down going to market. You add costs. It's a lot more inefficient. When in fact I could partner with a company that has 100 locations, and I'll explain why that becomes important relative to regional manufacturing and a trend we're seeing, and the speed at which I can globally distribute and get to market quickly. One of the things we did as an example was Google Chromecast. Google knew what they needed, what services they wanted to provide. They're really in the data business, and came to us and said, we don't know how to get everything that we need in functionality in this small device, and oh, by the way, we got to be in the market in 9 months. So we knew we would really have to condense the R&D cycle with Google, and we wound up actually innovating on the production line, which to get them to market in a period of time with manufacturing and innovation that's scalable. You call it sustainable innovation. And so we think there's an advantage to sort of being in a market where we can go end to end and supply all of that. And that's important, I think, today. So
let's hop around a few industries and drill a little bit deeper and see, establish where you see the real promise. Let's start with automotive. A lot of talk about self-driven cars, autonomous driving. How do you see that space? Yeah. And tell us something that we haven't heard about so far.
Well, first we'll say there's a trend called convergence relative to IoT, or the intelligence of things. And what I mean by that is you may have once said, I'm in the automotive industry, I sell cars. Today you're going to hear from CEOs of major automobile manufacturers, we're not just in the automotive space, we're in the mobility space. What does that mean? Product as a platform. What does that mean? Well, now my car is connected. What's it connected to? My world. It's connected to me. It's connected to my home. Do you start to see the automotive people start to move into pieces of the consumer space? Do they start to draw on the technologies and innovation coming out of the consumer space? Yes, you're going to find that there is very rapid sort of development in technologies in the consumer space that are going to be pulled into medical and are going to be pulled into automotive. So you start to see these converged industries. What does that mean? You're going to see a trend called collective innovation. Open innovation is going to become more and more important to companies than it ever has before, because these are industries that didn't normally work in these adjacent industries, and they're going to now have to understand them. So that's one part. But the autonomous car is already here. Yeah. So there's driver assist programs that are in your car, anti-lock brakes, lane assist. All of these things are being developed around the autonomous car. Now, is it truly autonomous today? No. but the technologies are important. Why are they important? 93% of all accidents are human error. If we truly get to an autonomous car, you can reduce that by 80%, the accidents.
Says who?
Says the Automobile Association, says there's a lot of independent reports that sort of validate that. And what you'll find is in reducing that, you're going to see an enormous cost savings. Whether that is passed on to the insurance companies and then thus passed on to the consumer, we'll see. But in 2010, you had nearly $900 billion in costs for society around accidents. And so as you think about where this all leads, it does lead to, we think there's certainly efficiencies, cost reductions, certainly a lot more. And we're seeing it in the number of incidents of accidents dropping, paralleling the amount of cars that actually have become smart. Yes. And that is doubling. So we're really seeing that the automobile manufacturers have adopted this idea of a smart car. Autonomy, the semi-autonomous state we're in today is important, and you're going to see that it has benefits. That becomes interesting IoT.
You brought some interesting IoT with you that will work in the car space, right?
Yes. So this is from MC10, a partner of ours. It's really does a lot of what can be managed on a cell phone today. It's a tattoo that you can just place on, and it monitors all your biometrics. So you can do everything from your pulse to eventually to blood pressure, et cetera. Well, what's interesting about this in the consumer or the medical space is we can take this very thin sort of tattoo and embed this into a seat belt. And as we start to think about embedding this in the seat belt, the biometrics are monitoring your heart rate and other biometrics around your body and its condition, and we'll know when and if you're starting to fall asleep. Why is that important? Over 40% of people that were surveyed basically have said that they have been in a car near sleep. They've nearly fallen asleep behind the wheel. The car will wake you up. And
that's quite amazing, and I'm sure a lot of people want to use that in the office as well.
Productivity gains.
There you go. Yeah. Can I take that with me?
Yeah.
All right. Any others? We're running out of time. Any other industries that you really want to highlight?
You know, I think you're going to see a lot of really positive gains in the space of intelligence in healthcare and medical. I think you're going to see a lot of it come out in consumer. I'll just show one other device. This is a computer. So, you know, as we think about flexible technologies, bendable technologies, technologies that can go through your normal washing machine, this basically does what your laptop does. And we can embed this in almost anything. So if you think about cars, medical, you now have incredible processing power. It has everything that a computer has in it, including power, and now can be put into anything. So as you think about industries that we're going to see movement very quickly, I think it's automotive, certainly healthcare. This idea that I think, if I quote this right, 1 in 9 healthcare dollars is spent on diabetes management. So as you think about blood glucose. As we get smarter about the technologies we're seeing, where you no longer have an invasive prick to sense whether you have issues in managing your blood glucose, it'll be done through your skin, through sensors, and that's coming. And we think as that gets smarter and those technologies get developed, that we can reduce by 20% the cost of chronic health care. That becomes a big savings for people. It makes people healthier. We can save lives. And so I think there's, as you think about smart grid technologies for your home, a smarter home, a connected world, you're going to see more of this come together. I think we talked a little bit about, we wanted to talk a little bit about the cyber problem in the data piece of this.
Well, there is a privacy and hacking threat that looms around all of this. So touch on that quickly before we just let the audience ask
a couple questions. I've got like 13 seconds.
Yes.
Okay. Listen, if you're connected, there's a way in. Nobody is going to say to you today that you're fully protected. What we're seeing with two of our partners, FireEye, Palo Alto Networks, that focus on this is, and I'll start with the broadest sort of attacks that happen. They happen about 100 of them a quarter. These are major attacks that happen in cyber. Most of those are state-sponsored. Most of those come from Iran and Syria, and they are targeting the United States infrastructure. So most of where you're seeing the activities in that space. Now there are hackers who try to hack into your smart dishwasher or your smart refrigerator. Most of those are just really about gathering intelligence. There's no real fundamental benefit monetarily yet for those hackers. So
but dishwashers are being hacked as we speak?
They may be.
Okay. All right.
I'm saying anything can be hacked.
Can be.
That's connected at this point. But how do you stop some of this? And this is a very important point. When people are developing product, the idea that you start with security as a default to your planning, and that you actually designed the product, the actual product, and the software together with security in mind as a default becomes one of the best ways to prevent people from hacking in to your IoT system.
Thank you for that. We got to wrap it up. There is time for one or two questions, if there are any questions in the audience. There's one. There's a microphone coming.
Hi, my name is Maximilian Schich. So security in the devices themselves is one thing, but as we connect more and more devices, we go through phase transitions of connectivity where we don't know what happens. And so one question that's going on in the risk analysis crowd is, where do we put the fuses in the system? Like if you have a large cascade going on, all the dishwashers uprising, whatever, not kidding. Right? So once a cascade happens, how can we cut it off so only Italy is taken out and Spain is still alive?
Again, it's in the design of your product. So as you think about the nodes that go into your product, the nodes have to be built and structured and engineered with security in mind. And many times the software that's being designed relative to security and the hardware that's being designed are on two separate project tracks, and they're not connected till later in the process. That's the problem. And so as you think about the nodes that sit within your product, whether that's a dishwasher or not, you start as a default. How will we secure the device relative to the design, the electronics, and the technology that are in the product, the hardware, and how does that marry with the software? And start as a default there before you start adding all the other capabilities. We don't see many people doing this. The ones that have actually protected their infrastructure quite well. So, and it is defensible. That is defensible. So I think it's just in how we engineer the mechanics along with the electronics, with the technology, hardware and software combined relative to designing those secure nodes.
Let's see if there are any other questions here in the audience. Michael, thank you.
This was awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
This is not fun.